What's up, everybody? I'm here with
Audrey.
Audrey. She is in 4th grade and she is working on decimals. So we're going to do a little talk over here about this grid. And when I first showed this grid to her, I asked her how many were on the whole entire grid, and you said how much, Audrey?
24. I thought you knew that.
On the whole grid.
100.
There's 100 on the whole grid. So if there's 100 on the whole grid, how many are colored in?
24.
Now show me how you know it's 24.
So right before this video, I counted this row, and it was 12. And 12 plus 12 is 24.
That's true. Can you show me how you counted?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wait, what?
Oh, well, can you fix your thinking? Maybe you miscounted. So you knew it was 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why we call that 100?
No.
No, I wonder why. So when you counted this, there was how many here?
10.
Okay, so if there's 10 here, then how many are here?
10.
What's 10 plus 10?
20.
So how many do you think, how could you count what's in the whole entire thing?
If you can count each row. If there's 10 rows, then that equals 100, because in each row, there's 10 blocks.
And 10 tens makes what?
100.
So you knew it was 100, but you never knew why it was 100. So isn't that helpful to know why? Awesome. Okay, so now that you know that there's 10 in each row, how many are shaded red?
20.
Excellent. So now I'm going to stretch your brain a little bit, okay? So now instead of this thing representing 100, I'm just going to make this whole entire thing equal one whole. So the whole thing is one big, huge, giant cake at a big, huge, giant birthday party. And it's cut up in how many little pieces?
100.
100 pieces. So if that whole big, giant cake is cut up into 100 pieces, what number can represent just one piece?
99? Or no, 100th.
100th. Do you know how to write that?
Mm-mm.
Do you know how to write fractions?
Yeah.
So what part did I box? How many parts?
1.
How many parts make the whole? In the whole entire cake, how many parts?
100.
So this is how I write 100th as a fraction. Do you know how to write it as a decimal?
Mm-mm.
So behind your decimal, you know, in front of your place value, this is your ones place, right? In front of your decimal. Then after the decimal, this is your tenths position, tells how many tenths. And after it, this tells how many, I hate saying this word, it's so hard for me to say, hundredths. Hard. So you said we have 100th, right? Mm-hmm. So if I was going to write this same number as a decimal, I would just need a 1 in the hundredths place. I would have no tenths and no holes filled in if I'm just talking about that one tiny piece, right? So now if I'm not talking about that just that one tiny piece, now I want to know about, now I want to talk about how much is this now?
10. 10 hundredths.
I agree with you. It's 10 hundredths. I wonder if there's another way I can say that.
I don't know.
So if I took this long piece, how many of these long pieces would make the whole?
10.
10? So instead of calling it, which is right, it is 10 hundredths, isn't it? You're absolutely right on that. But it's also 1 out of how many of this size piece to make the whole?
100.
How many of this long slice?
10.
So it's also 1 tenth. Did you know that? 10 hundredths is the same as 1/10. Isn't that crazy? Okay. Now, what about if I had both of them? Because we're trying to build up to this red area, right? So there's probably two ways I can say this too. So if I'm talking about the red part now.
20/100.
Oh. What's another way I could say that? Look at the tenths now instead of the hundredths. Look at these long slices. How many long slices?
2.
And we call those slices, each of those slices was 1/10, right? So I can also say 2/10, right? So this red part is 2/10 of my whole. Do you agree? It's also 20/100ths of my whole. Do you agree?
Yes.
So let's talk about how we're going to write this as a fraction. I know I don't have the full whole yet, right? So I still have a 0 in the ones place because I don't have a full whole yet. But I have 2/10, right? That's what you told me, right? So can you take the marker and put a 2 in the tenths position of the decimal? Okay, and then what do you think? What digit do you think could go in the hundredths place?
0.
Yeah. So when I read this decimal, I could read it 0 and 2/10, but I could also read it 0 and 20, what?
Hundredths.
Because those are equivalent, right? 20/100ths and 2/10 are equivalent. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Okay, you want to try another one? Okay. Okay, so we're going to keep working on these decimal representations, right? We already talked about how this whole grid is now representing one whole, which is different from it representing 100. Like when we were doing whole numbers, we used it a lot for 100. And what do you notice? What is that?
This is a smaller representation of this, and it's still 100.
It's still 100. And how do you know?
It has 10 rows.
It has 10 rows of
10.
Of 10, and that makes 100, right?
Yes.
But if we say that it's 1, then each of these are not 1. Now they're how much? I'm gonna have you shade a little bit for me, okay? Show me this. Can you just shade in that amount on yours? Perfect. How would you write that as a decimal? And if you ever have a question, you just ask, okay? Okay. So this says, this is the ones place, right? So this would mean I have 1 whole, and this is 1 in the tenths place. So that would mean 1/10. You're making a connection between this fraction, and you're trying to figure out how to write it as a decimal, right? Because you see the 1 and the 100 over here, so you're thinking, well, I'm going to put a 1 and a 100 over here, right? But let's remember, 1/100th is just one piece of a whole, right? Okay. Go play, baby. So do I have a hole yet, or do I have 0 holes still?
A whole?
Is this all the way shaded in?
No.
So what digit can I put here in the ones place? Good. And so I'm gonna put 2 places after this, and we're gonna put 1 digit on each line. Okay? Sarah, you erase that because I'm holding my phone and I'm gonna mess it up. So now I just need to figure out, I know I have 1 little unit. What's the size of that unit? Is it a tenth or is it 100th?
A 10th.
Let's look up here. Do 10 of this size pieces make the whole? Or do 100 of this size pieces make the whole?
Here, you can keep this.
Thank you, Craig. That's very nice of you. Okay, go play with Ian. Do 10 of this size piece make the whole, or do 100 of that size piece make the whole?
100.
So is it a 10th or is it a 100th?
100.
It's a 100th. Now you can look up here to remind you. If it's a 100th, 100th, then which spot would that 1 go in? That digit 1. Which spot would it go here? Would it go here or here? Which one is the 100th place? Good. Do I have a 10th yet?
Mm-mm.
So what digit can go in the 10th place? Excellent. Awesome. I agree. So the next thing we're going to do, here's one for you. Here's one for me. Our next one that we're going to work on is we're going to be representing
1/10.
So show me how you can do 1/10 on that grid. Y'all could do Legos too. Kai, if y'all want to do Legos. Good. I agree. You want to try to write that as a decimal? Awesome. Excellent. How do you feel? Oh, she's so serious. Kristen, your daughter has her scientist face on. So we just colored. This one was, I asked you to color in 75. Did I ask you 75 or 75 hundredths?
7,500.
Yes. And so on this one, we colored in 7/10, and then we colored in half of a 10th. So like 7.5 tenths, right?
Yeah.
So then we were looking at them, and you noticed that what?
This one wasn't. They were the same.
They're the same, right? So then I was wondering how many hundredths make a 10th? And you were thinking about that, right? Do you remember when you were working with whole numbers? Do you remember how many ones I can put together to make a 10?
10.
So how many hundredths do you think I need to put together to make a 10th?
10.
10. Isn't that cool? How many tenths do I have to put together to make one whole?
100. No, 10.
10. Do you see how that is? So if I have one whole and I break it up into 10 pieces, that's a 10th. If I break a 10th up into 10 pieces, that's a...
100.
100th. Isn't that cool? So it works the same way as place value with bigger numbers. It's just with smaller numbers, okay? So I was playing around on Twitter and I found this really cool GeoGebra virtual manipulative. I want to play with it a little bit, okay?
Your husband's home.
He is. He's going to be all up in our business. He's probably going to try to make a funny face. So check this out up here, Audrey, because this is pretty cool. You can say hi.
Hi.
Audrey says hi, Jen.
Hey.
Oh, thanks. Okay. This is super, super cool. All right. So this is a circle version. Oh, what do you notice? I didn't even do this on purpose. Look at that one and then look at what we did. What do you notice?
They're the same.
They're the same! I could not have done that better if I tried. What about the circle one? Do you think that's the same too?
Yeah.
How do you know?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's a half.
So these are 7, what size pieces are those? Are they tenths or hundredths?
10.
Yeah, so it's 7/10, and then each of these tiny little slices would represent a what?
100.
100th. And then on this number line, this is 0 and this is 1. Oh, I don't even know. This Chromebook is way cooler than my laptop. Is that also 75 hundredths?
Mm-hmm.
Is it also 7.5 tenths?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to think about that, and I want to keep working with this picture that we started our little session off with. So last, I kind of took out that line right there with the black, and now I wanted to show you some bigger chunks. So now I'm cutting my cake into bigger pieces, okay? So Do I still have 20 hundredths here?
Mm-hmm.
Do I still have 2 tenths here?
Mm-hmm.
Is there another way we can say that? Do you see the big pieces that I'm talking about? How many big pieces do you see?
5.
5. How many of those big pieces are colored red?
1.
So do you know another way that I can represent that big red piece? If
4
one...
rows of 10, but 2 big pieces. And 20 hundredths.
It is 20 hundredths, right? You said that this is 1 red piece out of 5 big pieces. What fraction would that be?
1/5.
Girl, write it! Yes! Now let's play around. I want to play with this. So let's see if we can make this show 1/5. Here, you record me. I'm going to play with this. My first time playing with this tool. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, no, you play with it. See if you can make that one look like this one. Is that so cool?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do it. Uncheck that where it says show divisions. Uncheck that. I want to see if that helps us. That definitely I can see 1/5 if I had that on my board. Do you see it?
No.
If you had drawn up there. Now your mom's going to kill me. Like. Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Ma.
Don't tell on me. We're going to fix it. We're going to clean it up. Okay, don't tell. All right, cool. All right. So, we know that 20 hundredths is the same as what?
2 tenths.
Which is the same as?
1/5.
And we also talked about that 75, what?
Hundredths.
Is the same as 7.5 tenths. You feel like you're getting better at these decimal things? A little bit? Do you want to practice writing that one?
No.
Well, you're going to anyways. You can pick which marker you want though. Let's practice writing that amount as a decimal because I know decimals are tricky for you still. What place value is that one?
The ones.
Do you have any holes? Here's an eraser if you need it. Is a whole grid filled up yet or not yet?
No.
So since I don't have any holes yet, what digit represents that I don't have any holes yet? There you go. Okay. Is that right? Don't erase yet. 7 in the tenths place. Do you see 7 tenths in your models? You don't? I see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tenths, right? I also see that 70, what?
100.
Yeah, so it's not wrong. What you wrote is not wrong. You're just not done yet. What digit will go in this hundredths place? What about this leftover? Because we talked about the 7 tenths, but what about this piece? So 5. So how would you read that decimal? How could you read it?
7,500.
Yeah. And 75 hundredths is the same as 7.5 tenths, right? Did you know, are you good with money or no?
Kind of.
You know how many quarters make $1?
4.
How many quarters make 75 cents?
3.
3. That got me thinking. Action.
Action.
So I was thinking, I knew you were going to do that. So we were talking about 75 hundredths, and then we were trying to connect that because that made me think of 75 cents. Doesn't that look like 75 cents?
Yeah.
So then I was thinking about quarters. I was thinking, I know there's 4 quarters in a dollar, right?
Yeah.
So then I was taking this, I'm trying to think about quarters. I'm going to chop my grid like this into 4 equal parts. Do you think that, how much do you think is in each of those?
25.
How'd you think about that?
Counted each row by 5.
Oh, because you notice there's 5 in each row. So if there's 25 hundredths in each of these, it's like 3 quarters. It's like 3.25 cents is, right? So if I filled them in like this.
Zoom in.
You zoom in?
Yeah.
Is this also equivalent with these models?
What do you think, guys? Yes or no?
What do you think, guys? Comment down below. What do you think for real, Audrey? Do you think it's equivalent?
Yeah.
Is it still 75 hundredths?
Yeah.
It's just shaded in a different way,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, so could I have also written it like this? Like,
I want to show a secret ready drawing.
would that still be 75 hundredths?
Yeah.
What if I just wanted to split it like this? What if I split it like this? How much is over on this side? How many hundredths on this side?
50.
So could I also write it like this?
They might be neighbors.
And then how much is over here?
50. No, 25.
Could I also write it like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, are all these the same?
Yeah. I can't see it well. I might need to stand up. Oh.
Go ahead, do what you gotta do, producer.
Yeah, I might need to stand. Sorry, guys, but comment down below. Have you done this before?
Is it blowing your mind?
Yes.
So now I'm kind of thinking about fractions. Isn't this half of the grid?
Yeah.
So could I do 1/2 plus, how much of the grid is this?
25.
But as a fraction, what would I say 25
20.
hundredths as a fraction? How much of the grid?
I don't know.
Think about those quarters and a dollar. Or remember when I first drew it, how many pieces were there?
100.
When I first cut my cake like this, I cut it into how many pieces?
4.
So this is just one of the fourths.
Mhm.
So what fraction would that be?
1/4.
1/4. So could I also say that 75 hundredths is the same as half plus a fourth?
Yeah.
Ah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
All right, I got the next level for you.
You know what I mean?
Let me get your face on that one. How happy are you? Yay, she's smiling.